Thank you very much for joining our training today. Today is the second session for the ISO 27001 foundation course. Yesterday we had the first session and we covered some important basics, principles regarding the training. And we started explaining the nature of the ISMS, and we said that the ISMS is considered as the methodology or approach to manage and protect your data. When we discussed the ISO 27001 and what are the components of the ISO, ISO 27001 consists of two different components. The first component is the clauses, and the clauses are the requirements where the organization must meet when they will be able to be audited against these requirements, and if they are implemented as recommended by the ISO, then they will be ISO 27001 compliance. And the second component is the Annex A, and Annex A, this is the controls for the network, or recommended controls of the network. And yesterday we had some time where we discussed the controls, and we understood that they are divided into 14 sections, and all the number of the controls are 114 controls. And of course, as we know that there is no need to implement all of them, you can implement only some of them. We will discuss this in more details tomorrow. Yesterday also we started the first clause for the ISO 27001. It was the organization context, and we discussed the organization context, and we said that the context, these are the internal and external factors which are affecting the organization and how they do the business in the market, and the approaches which it can affect the implementation of the ISMS and the ISO 27001 as well. Also, we had another requirement for understanding the partners and the stakeholders requirements, and the scope of the ISMS and the scope of the These are the points which we covered yesterday. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you have any problem in asking the question because of unstable balance state of the internet, please write your question in the chat. I will have regular check on the chat, and I will answer your question. I can see there is a point mentioned. Alaikum salam. Okay, alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Muhammad. I will share my screen now for the slides. Okay, I will not go through this slide. I want to go a little behind to just remind you with the clauses when this it will be clear for all of you. Refresh your minds. As we mentioned, that the ISO 27001, it has 11 clauses. We have 3 of them, not 3, 4 of them. We describe the standard itself. Then we have another 6 or 7 clauses which are considered the requirements. As you can see, from 0 to 3, we are describing the standard. Then we have clause number 4, the context of the organization. Number 5 for leadership and commitment. We have number 6 for the risk planning and risk management. Number 7 for support, including the resources, competence, awareness, communication. Then 8, it will be security operations. 10, performance evaluation. And finally, continuous improvement in clause number 10. Today, we will cover all these clauses. Yesterday, we covered the organization context. Unfortunately, I was not able today to upload the recording on the YouTube channel. I am really sorry for that, but you know, I am a little bit busy with other personal tasks, but I will try to upload all these recordings very soon. Then you will be able to attend these calls again if you missed something. Now we will start for the leadership and commitment. This clause number 5. Clause number 5. Leadership and management commitment, it is very important, my friends. Without leadership and management commitment, ISO 27001, it will fail. Why? Because the management, we have some responsibilities and we have to do it. This is very important. What are these responsibilities? Number 1, we have to develop the security policy. We have to develop the security policy. As we mentioned, that the security policy, it's considered the management intent for the security and how we want to protect the organization asset to able to achieve the goals and objectives. When security policy, this is our Bible, it's our basic. We have to start from scratch to understand what we want to do to protect our assets. Then we have to provide the required resources. We need a lot of resources to be able to implement the ISMS and the ISO. We need money, we need time, we need persons, we need meeting rooms, we need facilities, we need transportation between different locations. We need a lot of resources. Then the resources, it is very important to have the resources. Then it will be able to implement the organization ISMS. Okay. What else? Do we have any other things? Yes, of course. Companies, we have to understand the importance of the, what we can say, the ISMS. You know, my friends, what is the main problem which we faced when we went to organization to implement the ISO? There is a resistance. People, we are thinking that we are coming to make life very difficult for them. We are asking for papers, documentations, approvals, and all these things. This is considered a headache for all of them. And we are saying we are overloaded, we are overwhelmed with tasks and daily operation. Then you want us to have more other problems. But when we work with them and we explain to them what is the meaning and the benefits of the ISO and how it will help them, how it will make life easy. Everything, it has a template. Everything, it has a process. There is no need to do anything verbally, or what you have to do, only do the exercise properly with your management by sending emails, by filling forms, by using a system or whatever. Then they felt that life is very easy and they enjoyed the way and they start to help us. Also, we want to make the ISMS a part in our organization processes, daily operation. You know, in my organization, there is a joke we are saying, we are afraid to say good morning to our colleague who is sitting next to me, because I am afraid to say that, okay, I have to ask the risk management team, shall I say good morning or not? because whatever anything we have to do it in the organization, we must do risk assessment. We have to make sure that the risk assessment that this is properly managed and there are no risks. And even if there are any risks, we have to clarify this for the management. Then they have to mitigate the risk or to accept the risk, transfer the risk, whatever the actions, and we will go through these risks actions within the next few slides. Also, the ISMS and the security, it should be a part of the organization's process. When we start any process, security, it must be in front of our eyes. We have to make sure that we are understanding what is required for the security. Because as we mentioned, security is very important. Without the security controls and understanding the security, you may face a problem. In some situations, we are finding that there are organizations, we are very excited to start a new service or to start any new application. And when we make this exercise, suddenly we will find that they forget the security, and after the product or the service or the applications, it's in the production, we are saying, oh, wow, we forgot the security. We have to start the security now. Come on, gentlemen. What you have to start now? Security should be started from scratch. If you have to start the security after you implement the application, this it will be a weakness, and this will not be accepted. These are the commitment of the management, and this it will be very important that the management, we have to understand the role. Of course, as I told you before, the ISO, it has mandated documents. Fortunately, the leadership and commitment, it's not important, and we don't require the ISO auditors, we don't require this commitment to be written. But as our experience, it's very important to be written, although the auditor will not ask for it, but at least the management, they really understand what are the exercises required from them, and we have to prepare themselves for their responsibilities and make sure that we achieve these responsibilities as required. Okay. The second point or subclause 5.2 is the information security policy. As we mentioned, that the information security policy, it is the management intent for security, and this is their commitment to protect the resources or the assets of the organization, which it will help in achieve the goals and objectives of the business. Security policy must be updated, must be, of course, developed, updated, it must be communicated, make it available for the stakeholders and for all the employees of the company. And we have to update it regularly, and we have to communicate it to the people through awareness sessions, or to allow people to sign that they had a copy of this policy and they read it. And of course, the best way to communicate the policy, it will be the awareness sessions, as we will discuss later in clause number 7. Organization roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Of course, we are speaking about the roles and responsibilities for the security. And when we say generally roles and organization, I mean in the ISO, it means roles and responsibilities. You have to define the roles and responsibilities, who is responsible for what are the his responsibility, who should do what or whatever. This roles and responsibilities, it will be great if it's represented in a form of RACI. Of course, all of you know the RACI. It is the responsibility. R stands for responsibility, A for accountable, C for consultant, I for information. When RACI, this it will be the best way to represent the roles and responsibilities. It defines the role, who is the person, is it the employee, the management, the director, so on. So here you have the R, you have the C, you have the I, you have the A, and the tasks. When this, it will be responsible for this, and this person consultant or this information where you have to provide some information or accountable. This, it will be responsible, totally responsible for it. If there is any problem, he will be the person who should be accountable. Responsible means that he is a person who will implement the action, and so on. These are the responsibilities. Again, this document, it's not mandatory for the ISO 27001 requirements. Okay, we will have another phase or clause. It is 6 point clause 6, and in clause 6 we are speaking about the planning, mainly about risk management. Risk management, my friends, I will not go through the slides, but risk management, usually I like to open the new slide in the PowerPoint, and I will explain it to you in a very simple way, and what are the phases which you have to follow. Okay. In ISO, or I mean in risk management phases, first phase, it will be the organization context. Phase number 2, it will be the risk assessment. Then risk treatment. Then risk monitoring. Of course, in each one of them, we will have some more details and more information. We will discuss about these details now. First of all, let's start with the risk organization context. What is the organization context? Do you remember, my friends, yesterday when we mentioned that when you make a risk assessment, it depends upon the nature of the organization itself. Why? Because, of course, if you are working in an organization or a factory, for example, as the same example as yesterday, if we have a factory and we have two factories. One factory is manufacturing chocolate and sweets, and another one manufacturing weapons and bullets. Then this means that although you want to implement risk management in both of them, but of course, due to the nature of the business, both the what we can say, the risks are totally different. The risks in the two factories are totally different. Although both of them are factories and they have manufacturing field and They are the same, but the nature of the business, it will be totally different. Why? Because the nature here, we are manufacturing weapons, this we are manufacturing suites. Then in weapons, we have confidentiality, data, we have very important information. It will affect the country as overall. We have a lot of risks, which you have to take it in our consideration and so on. But what about chocolate and sweets? It's not a big issue. What is the confidentiality of data? Maximum some recipe to how to manufacture chocolate or some type of sweets. It's not considered as a problem. Of course, it should be protected, because if it's leaked, this means that the factory will lose money and business. But again, it's not a matter of national security, as the case in the factory which we are manufacturing the weapons. Okay, then the organization context, it's very important. You have to understand what you have to understand here. Here we have to understand a lot of things. First thing, what is the vision of the organization? What is the mission of the organization? What are the objectives of the organization and the goals? Also, it is very important to understand the organization context. These are the factors or internal and external factors. You remember when we explained yesterday the internal and external factors affecting the organization and affecting the business. These are other things which we have to take in our consideration as well. We have to understand the third party or stakeholders requirements and interests. And we covered these points yesterday in the clause number 4, organization context. Then, what is the next step? The next step, we have to start the risk assessment. In the risk assessment, what we have to do? First of all, you have to define what is the asset and what is the asset value. Why we have to define the asset value in the risk assessment? Because based on the risk value, it will define if the priority of the asset, if it's important and we have to provide a lot of security controls, or we have to concentrate on these security controls. For example, if I have some blueprint for designing a new weapon, then this will be sensitive information, confidential information, strictly confidential. I have to make encryption, I have to make access control, I have to make logs, I have to protect it in a different zone, and so on. Also, if you have a budget, and this budget, of course, it will be limited, then we have to concentrate on the assets which have the highest value for the organization to protect the assets. Then you have to define the asset, you have to define the asset value, you have to define the assets vulnerabilities. What are the vulnerabilities? Vulnerabilities, these are the weakness of the assets. These are the weakness of the assets which it can be utilized by the hacker to cause some harm for the organization. Also, what are the threats which they threaten the company? What are the existing controls? You may have some controls in the organization. You have to take it in your consideration, because this it will be important, because this it will save some money if you have already existing controls in your company. You have to define the impact of the risk. If the asset is infected by a threat, or a hacker, he was able to take an action against the asset, what will be the impact of the asset compromise for the organization? Also, you have to define the likelihood. This, how many times the hacker he can access this device or this asset. Some situation he may have many times, or it can be very easy to access the what we can say the asset. Then this it will affect the assets availability, or maybe integrity, or confidentiality, and so on. Here, based we can say based on impact and likelihood, you can define the risk level. What is the risk level? Risk level is very important. You have to define what is the risk level, the priority of the risk level. Okay, now you define the risk level, then you can now create the risk treatment. Risk treatment, we have 4 risk treatments. Number 1, mitigate, or in some situations we are called modification. Number 2, it is transfer. Number 3, it is called accept. Number 4, it is avoid. Mitigate means that you have to implement some security controls when you can mitigate or minimize the security risk. You will minimize the security risk. If we are saying transfer, this means that you have to transfer the risk into other company, as the insurance. If the data center is down, the insurance company should pay $1 million, for example. Accept that we will accept the risk. We will not do anything. When you will accept the risk? Usually, we will accept the risk in the following cases. Number 1, that the cost of the security controls, it is higher than the cost of the impact itself. Yani if there is any impact, it will cost the company $1,000. But if we want to implement the controls, we will find that it will cost us $2,000. Then this means that it's okay. We will accept the risk. In some other situations, there may be some cases the business needed where we have to accept the risk. We have an old application. This old application, we are not able to provide any security controls for it because this is an old one. We don't have the code. It is programmed. It's configured, or it's developed by a very old programming language, and we are not able to utilize it or to read the code or whatever. All this application is very important for the business. We are not able to stop it, and we have to accept the risk that it can be hacked until we are able to deliver or develop a new application. Then finally, it will be the avoid. What is the avoid? Avoid, this means that you have to eliminate the reason of the risk. For example, now suddenly you will find the marketing campaign, they are claiming, hey, let's have a new website, and we want to announce for our new products and allow the customers to make online purchasing, and this will increase our market share, and so on. Of course, usually business people, they are excited for new ideas, but you are, as a security administrator, you are telling them, gentlemen, we are really sorry, this will be risky. The website is 24/7 available over the internet. It can be hacked. Actually, we will have the credit card numbers. We suggest that not to publish the website over the internet. We can have a VPN connectivity for our clients only. Then we can use a VPN appliance where we can dial to the VPN through the internet. This means that you avoid the risk. You are not publishing the site over the internet, but you are still providing the same feature over the VPN SSL. Risk monitoring, it's very important to have the risk monitoring, and I am not saying risk only. Sorry, my friends, we have here another missed point. We would define security controls. This we call it define security controls and risk acceptance. you have to, now we define the risks, we define the priority, we define the risk treatment that we will mitigate, we have some controls, then you have to define what are the suitable security controls, and you define security controls and you implement. When you will implement the security controls, it is not enough. What you have to do, we have to monitor the risks and security controls. Now, after I implement the risk, do we have improvement in the risk level? It is increased or not? If it's increased, yes, great. Then this means that security controls are able to achieve the objective. If it's not, this means that we have to revisit the risk management phases and risk analysis to make sure that everything is running fine. Okay. There is one concept I want to add here, although maybe it's not important in this course, but I don't think that we will lose anything. That we have two different definitions, which are risk and opportunity. What is risk and opportunity? Risk, usually, it is the bad effect of the impact. I have an asset and I have risk. This risk, it is the impact. The risk is the bad impact. Okay, it is a bad impact. For example, hacker, he will be able to control the server, he will be able to have unauthorized access, and so on. We have another concept, my friend, it's called opportunity. Not all risks have a bad results. It may have a good results as well. For example, I am a company and I am working in development, develop applications, and I have an agreement with a partner to provide notebooks for my developers. Now everything is running fine and I am doing a good profit. After some time, there is a new company came in the market and they propose me with a new proposal that we are ready to provide you notebooks and we will give you additional 10% discount over the your original vendor. Okay. In some situation, it can be a crisis or it can be a good thing. Why? Because it can be a problem, it can be opportunity, because this means that I will increase my revenue by 10%. It's an opportunity. But on the other hand, it can be a risk because the company, it's new, they may not be able to provide the notebooks on time when I need it, and this it can affect the operations. In this case, we have to do something called, which we have to improve the opportunity or increase the opportunity. What do we mean? That, okay, I want to take the risk, that I will accept this risk and I will take the new company. But what I will do? I will buy 3 or 4 notebooks and keep it in my stock. And if I need any machines, I will ask the company to provide me the new notebooks. If they are able to provide on time, that's fine. If they are not able to provide on time, then I have to get the new machines from my warehouse, provided to my developers, and the new notebooks will be added to the my stock. Then this means that it will provide me with a very good opportunity, and it will help me to make additional feature or additional benefit by increasing my revenue. We want to give you an example for the risk management very quickly and how to understand these terminologies which we define. Usually we have a rule, it's saying, or expression, risks equal impact times likelihood. Of course, if you want to work professionally, you have to define the standard for you. Then impact, for example, we will say that the impact, it will be classified into 0, 1, 2, or let's say 1, 2, 3. Then the impact, if we will say that it is less than 10 US dollars, or it will be classified as 2 if it's between 10 and, for example, 25, and 3 if it will be more than 25 US dollars. This, for example, and the likelihood, it will be the same. Likelihood, again, I will classify it as 1, 2, 3. 1 if it will happen 1 time every 5 years, for example. This if it will happen once per year. 3 it will be more than 2 times per year, for example. Of course, in this situation, you can increase it up to 10 even. Yani it depends upon your security policy. You can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's up to you. And we will consider that we have 2 different types of risks, risk 1 and risk 2. Risk 1 here, and when we evaluate risk 1, we find the impact that we will lose 25 sorry, this is be like that. We will lose 20 US dollars, 20K. Of course, this not 10, should be 10K, and this should be 10K. The impact, it will cost us 20K US dollars, and this means that it will be classified as impact 2. Likelihood, we check our statistics, and we find that it will happen once per year when it is 2. In risk number 2, we found that the impact, it will be we will lose 5K. We will lose 5K US dollars, which it will be classified as number 1. And the likelihood, it will happen more than 2 times per year, then it will be number 3. Then what is the risk level here? The risk level for the risk level here for risk number 1, it will be, as we mentioned, it is impact multiplied by likelihood. It will be equal to 2 times 2 equal 4. 2 times 2 equal 4. And the risk level in the risk number 2, it will be 1 times 3 equal 3. Then this means that you have the risk level here 4, and we have a risk level here 3. This means that this risk level 4, it is very it's having higher value over the risk level, which is number 3. Then this has high priority, and we have to provide more controls for it. This the concept. We have also the last thing which I want to mention here, something called risk acceptance value. What is risk acceptance value? We will say that in the risk acceptance value, if any risk level, if risk level less than 2, the action, then the risk action accept. We will accept the risk, and we will not do any risk security controls. And here, for example, the risk level is 4. When it is higher than 2, then we have to make the risk control. If this risk it is 3, more than 2, we have to make risk control. But for example, if I have the risk 3, and when we make the analysis, we found that the risk level for risk 3 equal 1, then this means that we have to accept this risk. We will not take any action all related for this risk, because as I told you, we found that the cost for implementing the control, it is less than the cost for implementing the security control itself. Okay? This is a quick overview about the risk assessment. By the way, for the risk management, we have a course for risk management. I think it will be a week after. This is 3 full sessions, 9 hours. We will discuss all these in details. It's very important if you can attend it, because it will provide you good information about the security and information about management, risk management. Okay? Any questions, my friends?
Thank you.
Okay, you are most welcome. Let me share my screen. Of course, there are a lot of things I will bypass now because we covered in details, but still we need to make sure we discuss the risks and opportunities. By the way, risk management, it is very important, and you must document all the risk processes. Risk management processes are very important. You have to make a document for all of them. This first thing, it will be asked by the auditor to have a look on it. Okay, then risk methodology, we have here the risk level, impact, likelihood, the identification, owner, we covered all things. This. Threads, vulnerabilities, risk owner, analysis. I think we covered these again. Risk treatment option, mitigation, transfer, avoidance, acceptance. Yes, we have another point here which I want to mention. Do you remember, my friends, when we said that we Annex A, which consists of the controls in the ISO 27001, it consists of 114 controls. We are 114 security controls. My question to you now, do you think that we have to implement all these controls or not? My questions to you, do you think that we have to implement all these controls or not? Any idea?
I believe the 114 controls are measured in 14 controls.
No, into 14 section.
Or 14 section, yeah.
Yes, in 14 section, but this 14 section, each section, it may have 10, 20, 30, it depends. But as a total security controls, we are 114 controls. Then, do you think that we have to implement the 114 controls to achieve the ISO 27001 for our organization?
No, it depends on the organization.
How?
It depends on what the organization needs.
Okay. Again, can you give me an example?
I don't have anything running on over my head now, but
okay.
Not all the organization have the same industry. Some organization just providing services. Some organization have manufacturers. It depends.
Okay, let me clarify to you. As you mentioned, of course, it is not mandatory to implement all the controls, but it is not based on our opinion or our choice. In some situation, for example, let me give you an example. We are familiar with the remote access. I think after the pandemic of the COVID-19, we know very well what is the benefit of the remote access. Suppose that your organization does not allow remote access. We have very confidential data, and we don't want people to access this information from outside because they will be able to download on their PCs or whatever. And we don't want this information to be shared outside. If you want to work with our application and data, you have to sit in our premises. This is our rules. Take it or leave it. When this means that we have some controls for remote access, what is the benefit of implementing these controls if I don't have remote access? Nothing. Then in this case, I have to say that I am really sorry, my management does not allow remote access. When any controls for the remote access, I will not accept. I will not accept. I will not do it. But you have to mention this very clearly. You have to do something called document called statement of applicability. Statement of applicability. This statement of applicability has a list of all the 114 controls and if they are applicable or not. If they are applicable, that's fine. If they are not applicable, you have to write the business justification. Why you don't need to implement these controls. Because management, they don't allow remote access when I don't need. For example, when this statement of applicability, it is very important document, statement of applicability, or we call it in some situation SOA, SOA, statement of applicability. This, it is very important, okay? Based on the statement of the applicability, we will have another document called risk treatment plan. What is risk treatment plan? This plan, it's again a very important plan. This, it will have all the information about the risks and what are the corresponding actions for the risk. For example, risk 1, it will be mitigate. Risk 2, it will be transfer. Risk 2, it will be avoid. Who is the owner of the risk? What are the actions required for implementing the controls? What is the dead time for control implementation? Who is the risk owner? Then it will provide all the information about the risk treatment and the risk controls and the information about the risk and its controls. This is considered the interface document between the plan phase and the do phase, because this, it will be developed in the plan phase. We have to define the risks. We have to define what is the action for each risk, what is the security control, what is the owner, who is the owner of the risk, who will implement it, what is the dead time, what is the resources required, what is the cost for each security, everything about security control. All this information, it will be used for the calculations, and this document, it will be as our Bible, and this, it will be the result for the risk management. Okay. Of course, we have to define what are the security objectives. Information security objectives related to the risk management. For example, that we have to be aligned with security policy, we have to be easy to be measured, we should cover the organization needs and requirements for the information security, we have to be regularly communicated to interested parties. And when we say objectives, gentlemen, this is very important. Objective, it is very important. Why? Because we have to be descriptive. You have description, you have to define your objective clearly. It must be measurable within a specific time. For example, I want to increase the market share of the organization by 10% by end of this year. Then what is the description? Increase the market share of the organization. What is the measurable target? 10%. Then what is the, now we have 1 million whatever, I cannot remember the name now, but this means that we have to increase it into 1,100,000. And we time within 1 year. Then by the end of this year, I have to make this achievement. Then this means that we have to provide this information in very clear, this which we call it clear objective. But to say, okay, what is your objective this year? I want to increase my market share. Yeah, what to increase your market share? By 1%, 2%, within 10 years, within 100 years? You don't know. Then this means that your objectives are not clear and you will face a problem by the end of the year when you will start to measure these objectives, because you will not be able to provide you the required information. I think we deserve a 10 minutes break. Okay. Now we will cover the last clause in the plan phase, which is support. In support, we have 5 sub-clauses: resources, competence, or competence, in other words, awareness, communication, and finally, documented information. Resources are very important because, of course, we will not be able to implement the ISO 27001 or ISMS without the mandatory and necessary controls, like people, like money, competence, training, facilities, buildings, meeting rooms, and so on. These are the responsibility of the management, the top management. Top management, we have to provide all these resources for the ISMS implementation and for the ISO certification as well. Of course, the implementation of ISO and ISMS required the competence to do this. We required the experienced staff who are able to understand the risk management, we understand how to develop policies, standards, how to make monitoring and evaluation and continuous improvement and so on. What is the best approach? What is the best approach to develop the competence or to check the required competence? First of all, step number 1 here, we have to define the required competence. You have to define what are the necessary or required skills for implementing the ISMS and ISO. Whatever, let's say we need people who understand risk management, we need people who can develop policies, standards, procedures, we want people who can monitor and measure the traffics, we need people who can check the performance, we need people who can manage the projects as a project management, we need qualified project management, and so on. Then you have to find all the skills which you require for implementing the ISMS and the ISO. Then you have to define what are the existing competences in the organization. In the organization, do we have any competence or not? You may have some competence which you can utilize them, or may be enough, may not enough, you may have the resources, you may don't have the resources, whatever. After that, you have to make the gap analysis. Compare the resources which you require with the resources which you have. If they are matching, great. If they don't, this means that the required skills are more than what you are required, then you have to get a third party or make new hire. You have to make a third party or make new hire for the staff who can develop and maintain the daily operation of the ISMS and the ISO certificate. Okay, how you can develop your competence in the organization? This it can be through internal or external training. internal training, this training which it will be arranged inside the organization. External training, this will be training implemented outside the organization. Or you can acquire a mentor. This, for example, the CIO or the CISO or whatever, these persons who can help the fresh graduate engineers and the people who have only 1 or 2 years experience, we can mentor them to be specialized in security, to improve their skills and competence, and they can have a great role in implementing and managing the ISMS. Also, you can reassign persons to different positions. For example, if you have some people, for example, working in project team or in finance or whatever, you can assign them temporarily to work in the security department where we can understand the basics of security, what is the importance of security, how we can handle their tasks from the scope of the security and so on. Then these people, they will be very helpful for you. And the technical certifications, for example, let's say that I want to implement ISO, then I have to send the team for ISO 27001 lead implementer course, lead implement auditor, and so on. CISSB, security plus, whatever the technical certifications, which it will help you in provide the information, required information for implementing the ISMS and to be certified against ISO 27001. It is very important to keep a record for the employee's competence. This is one of the mandatory documents required by the ISO. You have to keep a record for the certificates, recommendations. For example, you have 1 or 2 employees who are working in a university, or we had a recommendation letter from their professors from the university, proof of attendance of training course, attendance certificate, or the attendance record for the employees, and so on. These will be very helpful for develop the competence in the for the ISMS implementation and the ISO certification. Awareness, it is very important. Competence, it is the skills which is required to develop the ISMS and the ISO and implement it and operate it. Awareness, this is the awareness, the information or mandatory information required by all the employees about the ISMS. I'm not saying here you have to implement the ISMS, but at least you have to understand what is ISMS. You are a normal employee, you may be in finance department, in sales department, in marketing department, in purchasing department. You are not in IT, you are not in a security department, when you don't need to have full details about the ISO and the ISMS, but you have to be aware about the ISO and ISMS, and especially your role and your responsibility. If you are not able to manage your responsibility, what will be the actions or what will be the consequences if you are not follow the recommendations mentioned by the ISO or by the ISMS? There may be some impact which it will affect the organization, and it will have a negative impact on the organization itself. This means that it will be the organization will be in trouble. Awareness, it can be done by different methods. First of all, you must have an awareness program, and with awareness program, we have to define what are the important topics and what are the courses which we have to provide it, what is the date of each course, who will provide the course, if there is any materials or not, what are the resources required, how the course it will be conducted, is it through email or short presentation or courses, or in some situation it may be event gathering. We are gathered for a birthday or for a party or whatever, then it will be nice to have 5 minutes about security and explain the importance of security for people within 5 minutes and so on. Then it will be very important to have the security awareness program, which it will help the people to understand about the security and importance of the security as well. It is very important in the awareness session, my friends, that you explain the roles and responsibilities for persons. In some situation, people, we are not bad. By nature, all the people are good. But we don't understand. We don't know what we have to do. In some situation, you are going to some of the employees and tell them, why did you keep a yellow sticker with your password on the PC? This, it will be very dangerous because any person, he can know your account and he can utilize it in a bad way. We are saying, come on, I am an old man. I may be 50 years old or above, and I have very weak memory. I am not able to memorize the password. And usually we are forcing us to use 10 characters, and it is complicated. I am not able to memorize it. In some situation, I am calling the service desk to reset, and after some cases, now we don't want to reset the password because we are saying that we are resetting my password every week. This person, he is not a bad person, but he has some circumstances, and we have to understand this. When we have to explain to them how we can protect it. Okay, there is no need to use this sticky paper. You can put it in your mobile. You can put it under protected folder or whatever. Then you have to provide them the advices how they will be able to protect the organization assets, how to protect the organization's goals and objectives, and the organization, it will be able to achieve its goals and objectives. Consequently, it will increase the salaries and everyone, he will be happy in the organization. Also, on the other hand, if you are not able to follow the ISMS rules and the security rules, what will be the consequences against the organization? Assets, it can be spoiled, assets, it can be stolen, assets, data, it can be compromised, and this means that it will affect the company or organization reputation in the market, and it will affect the income, and consequently this, it will decrease your salaries and your bonus, and you may not be able to receive any bonus for this year, and so on. And by the end of the day, it's win-win relation. If the company, it will increase, it have increase in income, this means that it will be increase in bonus and in salary for the employees as well. And by this way, you will be able to gain the attention of this person, and he will try to help you. Otherwise, he will stop you and he will stop whatever you will mention to him. Okay. Communication. Communication with subclause 7.4, communication, it is a very important method. I think all of us need communication in our life. Do you think that if we don't have a communication with each other, can we live? Of course not. I am speaking to my colleagues in the work. I am speaking to my wife in home. I am speaking to my son in the home. I am speaking to my neighbor in the streets. I am speaking to the people in the shops while I am buying something. Then we need communication. Communication, it is very important. Without communication, we will live in separate islands. We will not be able to understand each other, and consequently, we will fail. Without communication, we will fail. Why? Because if I'm not able to explain to the stakeholders what are the importance factors for the ISMS and how to protect the data and how to manage the data, then this means that no one he will be able to protect and manage the data, and by the end of the day, the data, it will be compromised because people, they did not understand what I want to tell them. You must have a communication program. It is very important to have a communication program. You have to define what are the, who are the stakeholders which you want to communicate with. I want to communicate with my internal employees. I have to communicate with managers. I have to communicate with directors. I have to communicate with customers. I have to communicate with partners and vendors. I have to communicate with government sectors. These I have to define what are the information, what is the information which I have to share with this organization and these stakeholders. Of course, not all data, it should be shared with them. There are some data which is classified as confidential, and it should not be shared with all the people. You have to find who is the contact person in your organization who have to share the information with the stakeholders. Yeah, for example, you know, when we had the pandemic for COVID-19, usually we are open the TV and we are listening for the news. You will find a representative from Ministry of Health. He is telling you what is the status of COVID-19 cases in the country and so on. Well, this means that we define what are the information we have to tell you: number of infections, number of cases dead, and number of cases recovered. These are the information. And who should communicate this data? Representative of Ministry of Health. He have to inform you of this data. What is the communication method? The communication method, of course, it can be whatever, anything, but in this case, it will be verbal, because he's telling this in TV. But in your case, for customers or whatever, you can send it to him email, you can put it on intranet or extranet, and they can access this information through the internet. It depends upon the way. Also, it is very important to make sure that the communication frequency, is it acceptable or make sense that you send the information every day or every week or every month. Then you have to agree about the frequency of the communication with the stakeholders, because this is very important to make sure that they are updated with the ISMS. Believe me, my friends, if you have a good communication program, this means that you will have a buy-in for your ISMS and ISO implementation. And if you are not caring about your stakeholders, because by the end of the day, we act as your customers, I'm really sorry to tell you that you will fail, because no one here will support you, and they will resist all your decisions, especially if you ask for money or budget or what. Okay, documented information, we have to document the information. In ISO 27001, documentation is very important. Documentation is very important. ISO, we are classifying the information or the documented information into two different categories: guidance and evidence. Guidance and records, sorry. Guidance and the guidance, this provide you information, this which provide you information about processes, about policies, about procedures, and so on. Records, this is evidence of performed activities or achieved results. Evidence of performance activities or achieved results. This, it can be in form of a database record, email, log in a log file. These are considered as records. Or it may be a paper, form paper, which you filled a paper that I want to have an access for a specific asset on a paper. This is considered as a record as well. The documentation or the document, when you will have documentation, you must include the following information: the description of the document, the title, the date, the author. You have to define what is the format and the media that, okay, we will use Office, and the data, it will be in form DOCX or PDF, and this it will be printed paper, or we will share it as digital format. It depends upon your company security policy. You have to define what is the official language which you will use it in the organization, and how you will provide the access control for it, and how you will distribute it, who will be able to have the access for these files and documents, and the security controls to protect all the important documents which you have in your organization as well. Also, you have to follow the change management process. Then each template or document, when it be changed, it should be very clear in the control, document controls, the different versions and what are the information which are changed and so on. These are very important, and documented information is very important for ISO 27001. Now we covered the first phase in the plan BDA phase, which is the plan, and we will move into the do phase. Do phase, we have only one clause, which is the operations. Operations, as we mentioned, my friends, it's very important, and we must understand in operations what are the activities which are done by the organizations and what are the outsourcing services. It is very important to understand the outsourcing services and the services which are done by the local team. It is very important that when you will hire someone from the outsourced services, that you have to follow the HR security rules for the background checks. You have to make sure that these candidates which you are hiring them, they are qualified, they have the right experience, we have the right documents, we don't have any hacking or crime records. We have to sign NDA that we will not share the information which we will learn or know inside the organization. You have to provide them with the security rules and security policy and inform them exactly what they have to do, and communicate these rules with the outsourcing organization as well. It is very important in the operations to have a change management procedure. Change management, this means that no one will be able to make any changes to hardware, software, application, policies, whatever, without the proper change management process. Where any person want to make any changes, he have to fill a form, even it's paper or on a system by the changes which you want to do it. This is called RFC, request for a change. This RFC, it will go to something called CAB, which is Change Advisory Board. Change Advisory Board. And the Change Advisory Board, it's a committee, and there is a representative from each department in this committee, and they will go through the request for a change and make sure that it will not affect any other components in the company or organization, and it will not have any negative effect. And if we agree that this change it will be good for the organization and we have to do it, then we have to schedule it and implement the change, and after that we have to monitor the change that it achieve its objective. Also, you have to establish the capacity management to make sure that the resources are capable to support the organization, and we are available, we are able to support the companies as well. You have to, of course, to make the operation team, we have to document all the organization processes and activities. It is very important. One of the main responsibilities of the operation team to develop the processes and activities documentation and keep these documents up to date. Because of course, today, if we have a team, tomorrow we will be promoted to other titles or other divisions. And of course, when new people they will come, we don't want them to start from scratch. But if we have a well-developed document, then we have to refer for it and start everything and make sure that everything is running fine and as it's described and recommended. I will not cover here the risk assessment and risk treatment because it's already covered in clause number 6, but just I want to highlight important point. Why do we see the security risk assessment and treatment again in the do phase, or we saw this in the plan phase? This is a very important question, and I want you to understand why do we have this phase again in the do. This risk as in the do phase. Because as I told you, risk assessment, it's a continuous process as the ISMS, as the ISO implementation, it's a continuous process. And even if we have a specific process right now and the risk assessment is done through the planning, then during the implementation and after the implementation, we have to do a risk assessment again. We have to make sure that it fulfills the objectives and it covered all the risks. There are no other risks, and we discovered risks are under control and security objective, security controls are managing, have this, be achieving the objectives and so on. Then this means that the risk assessment, it will come in the phase of planning, phase of doing and implementation to make sure that it's provide the proper protection for the organization. If you don't mind, just okay, my friends, I think now we have the do phase, and we explain that we have the three sub clauses for the two operations. And as we mentioned that the security risk assessment and security risk treatment, we are continuous form, and we have to keep this activity online after planning, implementation, fine-tuning, and so on. Okay. The third phase, it will be the check phase, and we have one clause in check phase, which is performance evaluation. Performance evaluation, it has three sub phases, and we have monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Monitoring is very important, and it is related to observing and reviewing the service. And of course, when we say that we want to observe and review the service, we must have the measurement. We have to measure this. Again, it's some specific value to make sure that the service performance it's okay. Because of all that, I am saying that the processor utilization should not increase than 90%. When if the processor reach to 100%, this can represent a problem. Then, of course, here monitoring and measurement, it will be great, and it will help me to check the performance and the service level agreement as well. Also, you have to analyze the results of measuring, because this it will provide you the information and the experience where you have to make conclusions and to have to provide the recommendations by evaluating the services. Of course, if you want to have the monitoring and measurement, you must have clear results. You must have the methods and methodologies for the monitoring and measurement. How you will monitor the service? You will have software, you will have some methods to collect the data, you will have agents, it will be installed in servers. Anyway, you have to define the methods and methodologies which it will be used for monitoring and measurement. You have to define who is the owner for this process and the frequency and timing of monitoring and measurement. You have to provide the results of the analysis and evaluation for the management, then to help them to improve the ISO and the ISMS based on the results of the monitoring and measurement. And this, it will help in the continuous improvement as well. The internal audit. Please don't be confused here between the internal audit and the external audit of the ISO. External audit of the ISO, this it will be from external party. It will be defined by the ISO organization. They will come from outside to do the check or audit on your environment to be certified in ISO 27001. But of course, you don't want to lose time and lose money if there is any external company they come and make the exercise and we find that you are not compliant. Then if you are able to provide some internal audit for your services, this it will be an internal team who are dedicated for the internal audit to audit the ISMS, audit 27001 results and requirements, and to make sure that everything is implemented as described in the ISO documentation and clauses. It is very important to have an internal audit program. You have to define the audit scope and what are the processes, departments, products, services, divisions, locations, which it will be in the scope of the audit. You have to define the time of the audit and what is the purpose of the audit. Do you want to make this audit to make sure that you are compliant with ISO 27001, or you want to make sure that you are compliant with the local regulation or external international organization? Then also you have to define who are the auditors. You have to avoid the conflict of interest. These auditors should not be working in any of the departments which we are doing the audit on them. And also we have, if we were working in these departments, at least there should be 1 year passed over the period of their work in these departments before doing the auditing. Otherwise, there may be biased for these departments. Internal audit is very important. It will find all the non-compliance cases, and it will be very helpful for the management to understand what are the non-compliance issues. Then we will improve the service, and it will provide the best performance and the continual improvement of ISO. Then we have the management review. Now, my friends, we have the monitoring, measurement, internal audit, risk assessment results. And we mentioned that the risk assessment is not only the plan phase, it will be also in implementation, and it will be continuous exercise. It may be carried out every 1 year. We will have the feedback from interested parties, from the customers, from the vendors, from the partners, from the employees. When the user, the management, we have to collect all this information. For example, the results of previous management reviews or recommendation which we have to do it, the feedback from the monitoring and measurement results, the audit reports which we were discussing right now, the feedback from interested parties, the results of the risk assessment, and we have to study all this information and take the recommendation to improve the ISO 27001 and ISMS. This is very important, and this is considered a very, very critical case, and it is required to provide this information to auditor to prove that we have a management review and we make a recommendation for improving the service. This will be very important. The auditor, he will ask for this record. This record, it can be in any format. It can be in email, which consists of minutes of meeting, or a document consists of minutes of meeting with the recommendation. It does not care. We are not caring about how it will be represented, but we are caring about the content. We want to make sure that the management, they have tie-in for the ISMS and ISO implementation. We are reviewing the results, and we are providing the recommendations to protect the network and protect the ISMS and their information as well. Finally, we will have clause number 10 for continual improvement. Continual improvement, it has two different sub-clauses, non-conformities and corrective actions. Of course, non-conformities, the definition of non-conformities is the unachieved requirements. Unachieved requirements. Do you remember when we said that the ISO 27001, they have clauses, and these clauses are the requirements. When if we have any clauses which are not achieved, this will be considered as non-conformity. And we must have, of course, a corrective action. For example, suppose that you have your users, we have their notebooks, and every 3 years you are changing these notebooks, and of course the old notebooks, you have to sell them, for example. Of course, as a recommendation that you have to delete all the data from the hard disks before selling the old PCs. But for some reasons, you discovered that the administrators, they are not deleting the data from the notebooks, and we are selling the notebook with the data. This is non-conformity, because this means that the data, it will be leaked, and the user, he can have, the new user for the notebook who will purchase the notebook, they can have an access for the data. This is considered as a non-conformity. And this means that you must have a corrective action. You have to check why the administrator, he is not deleting the data, and you have to put some updates for the policies and the procedures to make sure that the data is deleted, and make the necessary changes for the procedures or whatever any standards to make sure that you are doing the exercise properly without compromise the data, or you have any problem with the organization security policy. Finally, the continual improvement, this is considered the backbone of the ISO 27001 and ISMS, because usually we are saying we have to provide the improvement for the ISMS, and to have to make the changes necessary to improve the risk and opportunities for the implementation. And of course, as we mentioned that in the management review, we are reviewing all the information. We are providing some new technologies and these or recommendations, and these recommendations need to improve the ISO. And of course, everything in life subject for change. For example, why ISMS we need continual improvement? Because there are a lot of changes it can happen. We have changes in the organization context. We have changes in the technology. We have changes in laws and regulation. We have changes in the ISO itself. Yeah, in ISO 27001, it was ISO 27001 for year 2005, and in 2013 there was a new version. When we have changes in many different areas, and this will affect the ISO and ISMS implementation. Of course, if you want to have a proper ISMS implementation, you have to provide the chance for the employee and the stakeholders to provide their feedback. You have to define some specific person who will be dedicated to receive the recommendations from the persons and from the stakeholders. You have to make a summary for it. You have to study it. You have to propose it to the management to make sure that these improvements are suitable or not. Also, you have to introduce new awareness sessions, explain the new changes to the stakeholders, and to have some tools which, for example, intranet or extranet, where the people, they can add their notes and comments and make their suggestions to help them to improve the security ISMS implementation. I think we finished the module number 4 for ISO 27001 clauses. And now please feel free if you have any question. If you have any question relating to the ISO 27001 clauses, then please go ahead.